Just after COVID, I just had to find some courage to be able to quit the corporate side. Both my parents were working in government jobs. I grew up in a one-bedroom apartment. What I used to think and what I used to dream about is very different to where I am now. One or two of those people, I was having a real hard time. I didn't know it comes with that level of challenge. When the company becomes too big, it's more of a pyramid bell curve structure that not everyone who is performing well will get an opportunity to move ahead. You do get a lot of disappointment because you worked so hard. You have bills, you have family, a number of mortgages. There were always that level of fear, understand. You just go into analysis paralysis mode a lot more.
Today's guest is Deepak Mehta, a seasoned business leader whose career journey spans more than 2 decades across consulting, operations, commercial management, and now to property investment and wealth creation. In today's conversation, we'll explore the lessons, challenges, career pivots that have shaped your career, Deepak. So, welcome to the Success Dialogues.
Thank you for having me. Thanks a lot.
So tell us a little about yourself and your journey so far, from starting as a seasoned intern in 2005 to now being a founder in wealth creation.
It has been a long journey. Simple boy, born and brought up in India from Delhi, and then for engineering, I moved out of the house. Then did my MBA, so essentially a very typical Indian boy in 2010s where your parents are deciding your career and what education you should do, where engineering and MBA were the two most common things. So that's what I ended up doing as well. And I don't know whether I had any interest at that point in time. That's just how life spanned. And then I started my corporate career in 2006. For the first year, I did corporate sales. It was essentially B2B sales for an internet service provider. Internet was booming at that point in time. So that was my first level of corporate exposure. Then I ended up joining Infosys. Within the first 6 months, I got an opportunity to come to Australia for a project and just was overawed by the country. I really loved the culture here, the work-life balance, plus just the cleanliness and how nice the people were here. And just it was very hard to then fathom to go back at that point in time. And then settled down here, worked with Infosys, with Telstra projects for around 5 years. Then I got an opportunity within Telstra. So one of the managers I had worked, he was setting up a new team and asked me to join him. So I switched over and then worked at Telstra for around 8 years. So that was my corporate journey. And then just prior to COVID, I started something as a side gig, as a passion project, which continued to build up over the next couple of years. And I just had to find some courage to be able to quit the corporate side and then jump into something I really was passionate about. I run a couple of businesses now. One is PropWest, which is a PropWest investment advisory business. And I run another business called Redivo Living with a partner. And that's everything to do with construction, building new houses, redevelopment, knockdown rebuilds, and renovations. On the family side, I'm married. I've got two boys, 16 and 12, pretty soon turning 17 and 13 at the moment. So I said I've got a lot more time on my hand. My kids have grown up, so not as demanding now.
As busy. Yeah, I can imagine. I've got two as well, so but they keep me on my toes all the time. Your kids have grown up, and that you have some time for yourself to follow your passion. But you have made a lot of career pivots, right, along the
Yeah.
way from where you started to where you are right now. So, what would the 2005 intern version of you think about you when they see you today?
That's a very good question. As I said, I was a very simple, introverted person growing up in a smaller family. My parents were working in government jobs. I grew up in a one-bedroom apartment back in India. I think one of the things helped was I went out of the house at an early age to do engineering. So that probably helped. And then another 2 years in Pune. I think that totally changed when I did my MBA. That probably opened me up a little bit. Engineering was anyways a lot more technical, nothing to do with your personality, soft skills or anything. But I think 2 years in MBA program probably helped a lot in terms of improving my overall self-confidence, soft skills specifically. Beyond that particular point, it was all about measured risk taking. And as long long as you have the courage to take a little bit of risk, a lot of things might not work out, but a lot of other things can really work out well for you as well. So looking back, yeah, it's totally different what I used to think and what I used to dream about at that point in time. Let's say 22 years back is very different to where I am now.
Your journey has been quite amazing. And when we are starting out in our early 20s or whenever you start your career, we always think that this is where we want to go. But life always shapes us into and takes us into different horizons. You have also navigated through that and you're following your passion, settled where you are. But along this entire journey, there would be many lessons that you would have learned. So tell me about the most toughest lessons that you learned early on in your career, maybe in the first 5 years of your career?
Toughest lessons. I think you have to be a lot more open about things, and I'll share one or two instances probably that really helped shape my journey. One of it was when I switched over from Infosys to Telstra. So essentially, Infosys, as you know, more of an Indian IT company, so primarily people from our background. So the culture is very different as compared to an Australian core company. When I switched over, first year or two was a little bit of a struggle culturally fitting into the company and its work environment, the work culture. I joined a particular team in Telstra, which I think you were a part of as well when we connected in the past, NBNDA delivery. It had just commenced, so it was only 25, 30 people at that point in time. We ended up almost 1,500 people when the team grew up over the years. And I think I was probably the first Southeast Asian who joined the team at that point in time. So again, it was totally a different culture, mostly made up of local Australians and people from European background. So that was a little bit tricky to really adjust in the first year or two. I joined as a senior business analyst in a team of around 8 people. Within the first 6 months, my manager moved on to a different role and I was asked to take over his role. And I was early 30s and I had people who were 50-year-old reporting to me. A total cultural shock for me, how to manage people who are way more experienced than me at that point in time. So that was a real shift. To really understand how different people or personalities work. And that was a really good experience, which has helped me in the last 2 decades to grow my career. I would say with one or two of those people, I was having a real hard time in the first 6 months. There was always coming back to my mind that I don't think I can survive here. I should start to look out for a better option, somewhere I'm more comfortable or happy with. But I stuck around for that 6-8 months and took some coaching and mentoring and then was able to overcome the situation and people who I was having difficult time to manage, kind of really convert them as well. I always go back to that situation and think about like whenever you are in a very, very tough situation or a challenge, it's always easy to quit and just move on because it was early in my career. I could have easily found a job. I could have easily gone back to where I came from as well. But then sticking around and overcoming that difficult challenge totally turns you around. And I think that always remains with me, that particular instance, because every time I've had a difficult time in my career, whether it is corporate or business, I go back to that learning that if you stick around long enough, you actually come out to be way, way better on the other side of things. Yeah.
Absolutely. So those one or two people that you mentioned, were they your colleagues or were the people who were reporting to you?
They were all my boss's peers. I was in a team where I was reporting into a general manager, and I had to manage a program which affected multiple general managers, so peers of my boss. Building the relationship with those people took time, but when you come on the other side of it, it took me a little bit of mentoring and coaching, and I was able to overcome that. And then it is a lot more smoother ride because once you get people on board and they have the confidence in you, your journey becomes a lot more easy. And that's why, like I was going back to the same thing, started with 25, 30 odd people in the team. And the team actually grew up to 1,500 odd people over the next couple of years. So I was an integral part of the team for a few years.
Yeah. But you mentioned that when your manager moved out, your name was suggested to become the next manager and you took that role. What do you think made the company decide that you were the right choice?
Might have been something I had shown in the first 6 months. Maybe handling the tricky scenarios or the challenging situations with the other peers of my boss. I was anyways mentoring couple of interns and in terms of helping them in the organization. When I got asked to do that, obviously I was happy, but I didn't know it comes with that level of challenge because it was kind of my first people management role as well. In the past, when I was working with the other company, it was a lot more consulting, pre-sales, so more of an individual contributor becoming a part of the team, but not like a people manager. And suddenly I got thrown into people managing in a different country, in a new organization, people who are culturally totally different to me. But these are the things which fast track your growth overall. Yeah. Yeah.
And we always learn on the fly, so I'm sure that first journey of being a people manager would have taught you a lot of things.
Absolutely.
What do you think then separates people who get promoted like yourself than the ones who are in the same role for years?
I'll first separate out really the ambition part of it. When I joined Telstra again, when I understood the local culture, the first thing to separate out is not everyone actually wants to move up. Yeah, so that's the first thing. Let's separate that out. Like a lot of people would be happy to continue on whatever role they are playing, and that's where they are comfortable. So no disrespect. That's what they want to do, and we should respect that particular part. Now, coming back to the other side of things where you want to progress your career and want to continue to grow, I've always found that you have to be a little bit open to mentoring and coaching. And I think that's just a personal thing that has worked with me. A lot of other people is always about your skill, what you offer to the company in terms of whether it's your technical or other skills, your ability to do your job. That's the base anyways before you get to the next phase. But I think one thing has always helped me. I was always a good networker. So, in terms of always connecting with people and trying to understand people who are already above the position in the hierarchy in the corporate ladder, observe them, what are they good at, and then always connect and get some mentorship. And I think I was lucky enough in Telstra as well to have some good mentors who've always helped and coached in terms of what I need to do to progress my career there. So, I think that's something a lot of people miss or are hesitant about in terms of asking for help from other people. And my only recommendation or advice would be people who are senior in the organization. I think most of them would be very, very happy to mentor people and provide their advice. It's just you need to be more open and reach out to them because they won't have the time to reach out and individually pick you. But if you have the ambition to learn from people who have a lot more experience, then you need to reach out and just take that initiative. And if you can do that, I think a lot of things can change.
And don't be shy and have courage to, speak to those people who are in that position, because a lot of times it takes a lot to actually reach out to people and talk about it and then, get the right guidance for the way you want in your career to go. So I think that is also important to find that courage.
Yeah, that's really important, sir. It's just your hesitancy which is holding you back.
Absolutely. So these are the things that you mentioned that we can do to progress in the career. What do you think is the biggest career mistakes that professionals make without even realizing it?
It's always thinking about grass is greener on the other side, always looking at other people, that someone else is getting ahead. I think just focus on yourself and what you want to do and have that tunnel focus to where you want to be and things will progress. I think a lot of us focus on why someone else is getting the benefit or advantage rather than just focusing on ourselves.
Yeah. So was there a time when you felt that you were stuck in your career?
Probably in my first role or the first job, I felt there was a time, and that was one of the key reasons I switched over to Telstra as an organization at the first opportunity I got. When the company becomes too big, it is too big of a hierarchy. And then again, it's more of a pyramid bell curve structure that not everyone who is performing well will get an opportunity to move ahead. And that's just the nature of the corporate. That's what I've learned. As you continue to work in a bigger organization, not everyone can get promoted or can get ahead. So there'll always be limited amount of people who'll move up. So you have to see whether you have spent enough time or you have done everything in your control to be able to do that. Even if you still don't get the opportunity, then it's a choice for you to stick around and continue to do that or make a move and find a better place. Yeah.
So we spoke about success, but was there any time in your career where, you made a decision that didn't go as planned? Or can you share about any failures in your career?
Oh, several times. Yeah, it's the failures which make you learn a lot better, uh,
Mm.
and move ahead in life.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of failures along the way. I'll give an example, let's say from my business life. Especially, I'm working in the property or wealth creation environment. Someone is investing half a
Gotcha.
million, $1 million. So it's almost one of the biggest investments of their life they have ever made. And the cycles in terms of converting someone is really, really long. So we work with people for 2 to 4 months before helping them understand how this avenue can actually help them progress in life. So a lot of times we have spent 3 to 4 months in helping and grooming and making people really understand why they need this to progress ahead in their life. And then, let's say, at that point in time, if the business does not end up happening, you do get a lot of disappointment because you worked so hard for a number of months. And then again, when I was starting my career in this particular industry, every time a client says no to me after a number of meetings or effort I've spent, I used to be very disappointed for 2 days. And those 2 days are like productivity write off because you're not performing to your level for the other people that you are serving. But over a period of time, you learn from it. Then that disappointment from 2 days went down to 1 day, went down to a couple of hours. And these days, if someone doesn't proceed, we just say to ourselves, we did everything that we were able to do. Let's go and work out with people who are more receptive and help whoever wants to be helped. So, yeah, that's just a simple example.
You learn resilience, and then you move on with it very quickly. So, was there a specific moment when you knew it was time to build something of your own because you moved out of Telstra and directly into PropWest?
Yeah.
So, what made you decide that it was the right time to make that move from corporate to building something of your own?
Good question again. This was again something like I did not jump into a black hole straight away. I decided to quit my corporate career and just move out. I was building it for a couple of years, so that had given me the confidence before really quitting the corporate career. So when I was at Telstra, I was doing quite well from my career perspective. I had the opportunity to perform acting roles when my general manager was away. Every 2 years, I was getting the opportunity to perform a different role because of one, the performance was good as well. And as I was saying previously, I had good relationships with other people. So every time there used to be a restructure, people were really getting worried about losing job. I was actually always happy because every time there was a restructure, I got an opportunity to perform a different role and move on to do better things. So that was going quite well from that point. But approximately 3 years before I really left or decided to quit the corporate career, I had started this as a side passion project. So again, going back to the mentorship or coaching, I had a property mentor as well, who was helping me build my own personal portfolio at that point in time while I was at Telstra. And then that mentor started his own company somewhere around 2017. And I was then starting to help him scale up the business and did that for a couple of years. So did that. Obviously, that gave me a lot more confidence. The passion continued to build on. And my mentor was always after me in terms of coming over and switching to a small business versus I had never worked. My parents never had a business. So I had a comfort of a decent paying job in Telstra. So I took my own time. And then when I felt really strongly about it, that I can scale it up, even if I have to leave, then I decided I'll quit the corporate job. Essentially, even with Telstra, I gave more of a 3 month notice because I had a really good relationship with the people. I said, you find my replacement, I'll train them up a couple of months, do a proper handover, and then I'll switch on. So I wasn't in a rush. I set up the place in a sense that there's enough IP available when I move out as well. Yeah.
But were there any fears that you had when you were transitioning from, this stable job at Telstra and moving into this, even though you had the mentor, but you didn't have that kind of experience that you mentioned, right? So was there any fear?
Yeah, absolutely. You have bills, you have family. I had 2 kids going into private schools, plus a number of mortgages because I had built up a property portfolio as well at that point in time. There is a stable income coming in. You are used to seeing that income getting deposited in your bank account. And then when you switch to business, there is no surety. You are going to get paid each month. There might be periods of 3 to 6 months you're just not earning anything. And then there might be periods you earn a lot more as well. So there were always that level of fear in a bigger organization. If if your project doesn't work, there are multiple avenues. You can move out, do different roles, go to different departments. In business, that's something you don't have the luxury of. You have to do everything. You have to be a master of everything. So all those fears were there. I think financially it was. Obviously, my wife was working at that point in time as well. So there was support that there's at least one income coming in. And then I had done this for a couple of years to scale it up. So I had already reached a level of income on the side business as well. So I wasn't just jumping into a total black hole. So I wanted to keep that financial pressure away because, again, learnings from the back that sometimes you have to stick up for a few months or years before things start to turn around. So if you just go wholeheartedly into business without doing proper financial planning for yourself and things are not working out in 6 months or 8 months or 1 year, you don't want to just go back and have that pressure that I'll go with the backup option. Sometimes you just have to go all in and give it the time it needs before it starts to deliver results for you.
So, were there any moments where you questioned leaving corporate?
Every time. Yeah. So you do that all the time during the first few years. But then I think I always go back and look at when I was working in corporate. I felt there is enough capability I have to be able to do things, but I always used to feel there's a ring fence around you because when you work in a corporate, you are only working on a particular role or a project, and that's your ring fence. To go beyond the ring fence, then you start to step into other people's areas. And I always used to find that every few months, if you get bored doing what you're doing, then either you have to find a different role or you don't have enough challenges, then you start to get really frustrated from that perspective. And when you come into business, there is no one holding you back. You decide your own destiny. So if something is not working, you have the power to change it and do and try different things, which I always felt is so liberating when you want to get into the business. Not everything will work out in terms of the results or monetary value, but I think that feeling of you being master of your own destiny is very, very different. So I always used to come back to that. Yeah.
What parts of corporate really helped you in your journey of entrepreneurship?
The biggest thing was having set processes for everything because when you're running a business, everything is so random. Today you're doing this, in 2 hours you're doing something different, tomorrow you're doing something totally different. Half the time you are just fighting the fires, what has come this morning. So if you have to build a good revenue and good business over a long term, you do need to have set processes in place as well. And I think that was the biggest thing, which I find in some of my other friends who are running businesses directly after education. They went straight into businesses. I find it that's the hardest part for them because they haven't been through an environment where you have proper set processes which are defined. And until you do that, it is not a repeatable business because everything is in your head. And until you are there, business is running. If you're not around, then it doesn't. So I think that probably really helped having a structured process. That's what you learn from your corporate side. And if you can implement that in your business, then that helps you to scale the repeatable processes. Yeah.
So, was there anything that also held you back in that case because you come from corporate and not, or just like a fresher?
The risk taking capability. Yeah. If I compare it with other people, the example I was giving, while they might be a little bit behind on having set processes, but for them, the ability to take the decision and take it as fast as possible is not something that comes naturally to you because I'm wired, let's say, different in the 15 years of corporate that I had. That before you commit to a decision, you are probably consulting with 5 other people and taking everyone's opinion. Doesn't work like that in business. If you have a conviction, you take a decision and you move forward. You bear the risk, you bear the results of it, but it is not that you're sitting and consulting with 5, 10 different people, taking everyone's opinion before doing it. So that was a natural shift. First few years probably couldn't do it, but it was a slow burn. And now, after being in the business for a few years now, I understand the importance of moving faster.
Let's go a little deep dive again into the wealth creation bit where you are at the stage. So, do you think wealth creation is about more income? Is it the mindset, strategy, or the discipline?
Or combine everything, primarily mindset, because again, I came from a different background. As I said, from born and brought up in India, both parents were working in governments and not a lot of income coming in. Investment was never a word probably I would have heard my parents talk about. It was always, okay, whatever is coming in, how do we survive at that point in time? Even the house was on rent, we were living. The good thing was my parents saved up enough to be able to send me and my brother both into private schools, which was a bit different to anyone else living in my locality at that point in time. Everyone was going, let's say, government schools. And again, nothing bad about government versus private. So a lot of it is about a mindset. Going back, we were taught that you need to save enough to be able to buy your home and pay off your home, and half your life is set from that perspective. You've done majority of it. But when you come into a different country like Australia, you left all your family friends to build a better life here. Started to learn a lot of these financial investment and other principles. I used to read a lot of financial books, Robert Kiyosaki and some of the other ones as well. That really helped because again, I wasn't exposed to any of these things while growing up or studying. But then once you start earning, you need to really give a thought process about how are you going to be in your 30s and 40s and 50s, and you don't want to be always dependent upon your active income, which is essentially what you are earning in replacement of your effort and time that you're putting. You need to always think about starting to build some form of passive income, which is always coming in, whether you are there or not there. So, as long as you can understand the concept of active versus passive and start to slowly but strategically put some investments into your passive assets, then it can really help you. And again, if I go back to my own journey, if I hadn't done some of the investments at that point in time, it is much harder for me to take the risk and go into business. I had done that, and that provide the cushion to be able to do things or take more risks in life.
I really like the point that you mentioned that, you studied finance before investing. And I do believe that, finance and how to deal with money, that should be taught in school. I think like wealth education and investment should be embedded in the school education system
Yeah,
rather than what we have
absolutely
currently
right.
going out, right? So people make less wrong financial decisions versus what, we all have learned through failing sometimes in our projects and investments. So that's really good that you made that call to first learn and educate yourself versus just blindly investing.
And the world is changing quite fast in that term. So obviously, maybe a couple of decades back when I was in school, the education system was very, very traditional, not a lot of practicality around it. But I think with the onset of internet, social media, and everything else, these days, even kids have so much information on their hands. So now it's on the other side. They have too much information. With us at that point in time, we didn't have a lot of information. But nowadays, with the younger generation, they just have too much information. So they can learn a lot, but they just need to know how to filter it out and focus on the right thing rather than just consuming everything
Just
available.
consuming
Yeah.
everything. Correct, correct. So what do you think is the biggest myth that people believe about building wealth?
You need a lot of money to be able to do the change. As someone investing in property, more than 60% of property investors earn less than $80,000 as an annual income. Yeah, so that's just one stat. It's not just the rich always have the money and the capability to be able to do that. So they actually invest lesser in real estate, more in maybe the higher return assets because they can take higher level of risk. If they have the right set of motivation and little bit of mentoring can help them get ahead in life. So anyone can invest. And I have several examples where I've worked with people who are just in their early 20s, but they are switched on and just have the determination to be able to invest in property while not earning enough income. One of the guys I always remember, he was a hustler working full-time job and driving Uber on the weekends because he just wanted to get ahead. A couple of years back, he wanted to invest in property, didn't have a lot of money at that point in time, wasn't capable. So we just built up a plan that in the next 6 to 8 months, if you can save up this much, have a strategic structured saving plan for the next 6 to 8 months, then you can hit that stage to have the minimum amount available to be able to do that. And he was really switched on, worked even harder, saved that money, invested in property, and starting to hit his goals. And so there are different set of people. As I said, from a myth perspective, you don't need to earn a lot of money to be able to just need the right guidance, and you can do a lot better.
And what's the biggest mistake that you think that everyday investors are making?
I think rather than making a mistake, a lot of people just get stuck in terms of their decision making capability. And I'm finding this a lot more with so much information available. Previously, there was limited amount of information available. So you look at it, and if you are confident this is the right decision, you'll move ahead and do it. And these days, with so much of information, just one point, everyone has so many opinions about it, whether it is right or wrong or whatever, you just go into analysis paralysis mode a lot more. So that I find is the biggest challenge in the current environment. Because of too much of information, people are just not able to take a decision. I think as long as you are 70-80% confident with something, you should go ahead. At worst, you might fail, but you'll learn and get better the next time. But if you just do not take a decision, do not proceed, a lot of times you're just stuck there doing nothing and adding no value to your own circumstances. Yeah.
So if there is someone who is in their, say, 20s or 30s who wants to build long-term wealth, where should they focus on first?
Just educating themselves. There are multiple avenues. Property is just one of them. Yeah. So you have other asset classes like stocks or shares and even further. So based on their own risk capability profile, based on their goals, where they want to reach, then you can work out and have a customized program for them to be able to start investing. And as I said, house obviously needs a lot more investment. So you need to save a lot more. But while the time you are saving doesn't need that saving has to sit in the account. That savings can be invested in another liquid asset where you're growing, at least still getting better returns than putting it in bank, because inflation is just eating your money there. So everyone can have a tailored or slightly different plan.
And so to conclude, I would want to ask you this. What does financial success mean to you today?
Financial success, I think it's the ability to have a choice of what you want to do. Rather than building other people's dream, you are working on what you are really passionate about or what you really want to do. So you're spending more time in the things that you like to do rather than spending more time on building someone else's dream. If you have the capability to be able to decide what you want to work on, where you want to spend your time, that's the best financial success. Doesn't mean you need to be having millions of dollars. As long as you're happy and you wake up every morning excited and raring to work on whatever you want to work on, that's the best way to describe financial success.
Thank you so much, Deepak, for all that valuable advice and sharing your experiences with us. I'm sure the viewers who are watching this have gained a lot of insight. And for anybody who's stuck, they will also get some motivation to, move ahead, and that, there's always pivots that you can make in your life also if something is not working out. Thank you so much, Deepak.
Thanks for having me. It was really nice chatting with you and sharing some of stories about my life. So that was really good. Thank you.